Welcome to the Doug and Commish Show, and actually it's just called the Doug Show tonight. The Commish is unable to attend. Actually, what he's at is a Tim Tebow celebration going down in Miami, and so he will not be able to join us. We are going to our podcast format, so unless you want to stare at my face the entire time, my suggestion to you would be get some work and sit back and relax and listen to the show. We're actually going to have a couple GMs call in and do our preview show that way. And our first GM is Dan Chapman. And here we have Dan Chapman on the phone. Dan, are you there?
Yeah, man. First time, long time.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you for calling in. Anyway, got a couple questions for you. You are the general manager of the Soldier team. Your season is 2-4. You are the returning champion. What do you think has been one of your big struggles this year?
We've struggled defensively. You know, we haven't been able to keep our opponents from scoring as much as we like.
Okay.
We've made some bad choices as far as guys to put in the game, and the guys that we had in didn't really produce. So,
Okay.
you know, that's caused us a little trouble.
All right. Now, you're on a 3-game losing streak. This week you're against White Trash. Do you get off the schneid this week?
It's gonna take some serious work, but I like our matchups.
Okay.
You know, we got some good matchups at Arizona with Big Ben and Bolton at Jacksonville. I like that. Miles Austin at St. Louis, Dwayne Bowe at Oakland. I like those matchups.
Those are good matchups. Obviously, one of the ones that I keyed in on was Marshawn Lynch against Cleveland. You really do have to like that. That said, Cleveland is coming off of a bye week. What are your thoughts on having a team come off the bye week to face your team? Do you get nervous about that? They've had an extra week to prepare.
Yeah, you know, what I hope is that they look at Seattle's running game and not think much of it and try and focus on Doug Baldwin, who had a big game last week, and kind of forget about Marshawn.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I look at also the Miles Austin one. Tony Romo needs to show up big to maybe get everybody off of his back, and might not be a better matchup for him than having Miles Austin against St. Louis.
Yeah, Miles and him finally got a whole week of practice together. I saw him having dinner last week,
Nice.
and so I think they're ready to go.
Well, I will say this. When you think about Dallas Clark, is Dallas Clark turning the page with Curtis Painter, or was that a one-week wonder type thing?
Well, I think it's going to depend if the die comes back. If the die comes back, I think you see Dallas Clark go back into a blocking tight end. But if he's out, then I think Dallas Clark's got his way passing the ball then.
All right, now on Jake's side of things, Ryan Matthews is a good pickup against the Jets. The Jets are the 29th worst team against the run. But the question is does he pick the right guy? You know, it's Tolbert, it's Matthews. You know, you never know who's going to go. He also has Larry Fitzgerald against your beloved Steelers. What are your thoughts? Did the Steelers call you and tell you what their game plan is?
Yeah, I had a word with Mike Tomlin earlier. You know, he always calls and asks for some pointers, and so you know they're going to go with what's been working with them so far this year. And you know they're the #1 pass defense in the league, so I think they'll handle them pretty well.
Yeah. Well, right now ESPN has it slotted as 99 for you and 104 for White Trash. I mean, obviously you don't want to necessarily comment because you're the GM. You can't really bet on the games, but you think you might be able to pull it off this week.
Yeah, I think I got it this week. I think they're really giving Cam Newton too much at Washington, and I really think they're giving Fitz too much at Pittsburgh, as well as, you know, Maurice Jones-Drew even at Baltimore. So
yeah, I think
I like my matchups.
Yep. All right. Well, on the other game kind of that we asked you to kind of maybe look up is the Doughboy against Sass. Now Doughboy is a Knoll brother of yours, and I mean, as much as you want the Knoll to win, you also want to gain some games, correct?
Oh, yeah. Not for Jim if he wins, you know, overall, but, you know, as far as us making the playoffs, you know, Jim's going to lose.
Yeah, I'm with you. And obviously he has Tony Romo against him.
He doesn't really have the matchups this week to pull off a victory.
Yeah, and I mean, he's looking pretty rough. He doesn't even have a defense set right now.
No, you know, and that might be a good thing for the Knoll division.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, just go with no D.
Yeah, at this stage in the game, it might be. But anyway, Sass has Greg Jennings against Minnesota. They've just looked awful this year.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a big matchup for him. Also, I think, you know, Marquise Colston at Indianapolis.
Okay.
I mean, I just think that's just a fair game for Colston just to pick on them all day long.
Yeah, the matchup I really like on Sass's side is Lance Kendricks against Dallas. Dallas is one of the worst teams against the tight end, and I think that the short passes will be pretty good for Sam Bradford, especially trying to get Brandon Lloyd maybe open. He might be able to get some stuff underneath. Anyway, who do you think's going to win, Doughboy or Sass?
I got Sass. I mean, Tom, you got to hand it to him. He's put together quite a season.
Yep.
Some pretty lucky wins, but sometimes you got to be lucky, in order to be good, and he's pulled that off. I think he got another one, up his sleeve.
Now, let me ask you this. Tim Tebow starting for the Bean. What are your thoughts on Tim Tebow?
Oh, I like him as a fantasy guy, You look at him last week, he scored more points than most fantasy quarterbacks did in one half, just because he's going to run the ball in. He's going to, get 40, 50-yard rushing, maybe have a touchdown or two rushing, and then maybe one touchdown passing. He's got a great matchup this week at Miami.
Yep.
Good way to start for Tim Tebow.
Now, Bean's facing the new guy. New guy's 1-5. He says he's enjoying the league, but your thoughts on who wins the Doughboy Bean or the Bean new guy game?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I really like new guys. He just has been unlucky and given 118 points a game.
Yeah.
So I really like his team. I think he scores over 100, and I think he pulls off the victory.
Pulls off the victory to pull him to 2-5 and take Bean to 3-4. All right. One last question. One last question for you here. The Knoll division has just been in a slump. Any thoughts? What do you think it is?
Well, I think we're spending not enough time focused on the right things. I think we're a little bit distracted. We've won the last 2 championships or 2 of the last 3 championships. So, we just get kind of focused on playoff runs and things like that. We forget that these games before you get to the playoffs matter too. So I think you'll see them get focused in here this next few weeks, and they're going to win. Go on a big winning streak here.
All right, well, Mr. Chapman, we appreciate your time. We know you are a busy GM trying to turn the franchise back around in the winning direction. So we do appreciate your time, and we wish you the best of luck this Sunday. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, thanks.
All right, we'll see you. And now we are joined by the GM of The Greatest Show, Mike. Mike, are you there?
I'm here.
Mike, nice to have you on. How are you doing?
Thanks. Good to be on. Doing great.
First of all, you're 5-1, and your team's looking pretty good. What has been your biggest surprise in your roster so far?
Definitely, I'd say Jimmy Graham. Took a chance on him a little bit at the draft. Probably a little higher than he should have gone in the draft. But just took a shot, and he's paid off big time.
Nice. Well, yeah, he really has. He's been unbelievable. And obviously, we looked at some of your selections as far as maybe picking up Chris Johnson or Jamal Charles, and you just had to pick up the right guy.
Yeah, I definitely came down the last few moments there, whether it was going to be Ray Rice or Charles, and decided to go with Rice, and got a lucky break there.
Yeah. Now, your matchup this week is against the ailing Toilet Town. The Knoll is struggling right now, and the Shula seems to be dominant. What do you think's going on with the Knoll?
I think they are struggling a little bit, but I think too they've lost some close games.
Yeah.
If you look at what the Sass has done the last couple weeks, winning by 1, 2, 3 points or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of them not playing very well and then also not really getting any breaks.
Yeah.
So I think they'll rebound a little bit. Still question a little bit whether they're having really good teams, but
yeah.
I think it'll turn around a little bit.
Now, your matchup this week against Toilet Town, as we mentioned before, Toilet Town doesn't even have a defense. That's the second Knoll team that does not have a defense in set. We have to assume he's probably picking up the Bengals. But the Bengals are on a bye week. What's he going to do?
I don't assume what Toilet Town will do.
Yeah.
It's certainly not easy to guess what he's up to. He may just hold out a defense. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope he does.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Now, anyway, for what it's worth, the commish is actually picking against you, which probably shouldn't be a surprise because he doesn't like your team. That said, I'm actually going to go ahead and pick you for this game. Your matchups just look a lot better than his, and his best matchup might be Jacoby Ford against Kansas City. But I don't know about Carson Palmer throwing to a guy that he's only practiced with for 3 days.
Yeah, he's also got some bye week issues with Sean Jackson and Steve Johnson being out. So
yeah,
certainly on paper it looks like I have the advantage, but fantasy football, you never know.
Yep. Next matchup, the Jock versus Nips. Who do you like in this matchup, and for what reason?
I like the Nips, not just for the true homer in me, but I think Jockey really does have some bye week issues.
Yeah.
With Bradshaw being out, Brady being out, starting Matt Castle is certainly not anything that he'd want, but he doesn't really have a choice right now. And Macklin being out as well. So
yeah, Macklin's been a huge fantasy surprise for owners, right?
Yes, he's very good. Yep.
Yep. Now Nips is gonna kind of roll with Daniel Thomas against Denver. What are your thoughts on Daniel Thomas?
Rookie, so you're gonna have some good weeks and some bad weeks. He surprised us 1 week, I think it was week 2 or week 3, where all of a sudden he got 25 carries and had a really nice game.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll have other games where he just won't show up. So with Jabez Best being out, he really doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But to play Daniel Thomas. So roll the dice, but he's got Aaron Rodgers, Vincent Jackson, and so he's got some good plays there.
Yep. Now, who do you have for this matchup then, if you were to pick one?
I'm going to take the Nets on this one.
All right. The other game is Trash Talk versus Foe. Should be a pretty high-scoring matchup, and I really like Trash Talk's running back matchups, or at least Darren McFadden's. Obviously, he's from Arkansas, so you're familiar with his work.
I am. Always been a big McFadden fan. Glad he can finally stay on the field, stay healthy so far.
Yep.
I kind of disagree. I think this is kind of going to be a lower scoring game.
Oh, really?
I don't think either team would be happy with, really happy with, this is not the optimal lineup on the field.
Yeah.
Again, with the bye weeks, really hitting everybody hard with 6 teams on bye this week.
Yeah.
Fred Jackson being out for Trash Talk.
Yep.
And Nappy being without Gore and Hernandez. So.
Now, on Nappy's side of things, you look at his Tashard choice. What's the word coming out of Dallas for which running back are they going to be using?
I believe if I had to put a number on it, I would say about 60-40. DeMarco Murray will probably get most of the touches.
Yeah.
I expect Dallas to have a healthy lead in this game, so I think they will run the ball quite a bit.
Okay.
So I think Tashard choice gets between 10 and 15 touches.
So worth a start then.
Worth the start. There's not really any better options right now. You can't rely on Hightower. He could get 2 carries or 20. So with Shanahan, you never know.
All right. Well, who are you taking in this matchup?
I like Trash Talk in this one.
All right. Now we talked to Chapman earlier and asked him about Tim Tebow. How do you feel about Tim Tebow, the fantasy quarterback, not the real life one?
I think he's actually a better fantasy quarterback than probably a real quarterback, just because of the rushing ability that he has, and he's basically probably going to be their goal line back. So you got to think probably once a game he's going to get in the end zone with his legs.
Yeah.
And if he gives you anything through the air, you got to figure on 15 points.
Yep.
Just right there. So.
Now, what GM or what team are you most nervous about coming up through the ranks? You're obviously at 5-1. What team makes you most nervous as you look ahead?
Talking about the rest of the season?
The rest of the season, yeah, sorry.
On my schedule? Well, you'd have to say the Nips in the Shula division. He's scoring a lot of points every week, and certainly with Aaron Rodgers, you can win any game with him on your team. He's obviously the best fantasy quarterback and real quarterback out there.
Yeah.
So I would say that'd be the team that on the rest of the schedule that scares me the most. All
right. Well, Mike, we wish you the best of luck this week. Thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug. Have a good week.
All right, have a good week. Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
It was the GM from The Greatest Show on Paper. We'd like to thank both Dan Chapman and Michael McLaughlin for calling in this week. Hopefully next week the commissioner will be back. That will be the conclusion of this podcast, The Doug Show, with no commish, obviously. May all your fantasy players be studs.